Let me start with something that might sting a little. Most men who stop chasing a woman are doing it for the wrong reason. They're not stopping because they respect themselves. They're stopping because they think it's a strategy. They think if they pull back, she'll suddenly realize what she's losing and come running. And 9 times out of 10, that backfires completely. Here's why. When you stop chasing someone, her response tells you everything you need to know about where you actually stood with her. But most guys are so busy hoping for scenario A, where she misses them and reaches out, that they completely miss the signs they're actually in scenario B or C. Scenario B. She feels relieved. You stop. Scenario C. She doesn't even notice you're gone because you were never a priority to begin with. And here's the brutal part. The longer you wait around hoping she'll chase you back, the more time you waste on someone who already made her decision. The men who actually understand what's happening when they stop pursuing don't sit around checking their phone. They're not waiting for her to notice. They already know which scenario they're in. And more importantly, they know exactly what to do next. Before we dive in, let me be clear about something. This isn't about playing games or using some reverse psychology trick to manipulate her into chasing you. That kind of thinking is exactly the problem. This is about understanding the actual psychology at play, so you can make decisions from a place of clarity and self-respect, not desperation or manipulation. The truth is, most dating advice sells you a fantasy. Stop chasing and she'll come running. But real psychology is more nuanced than that. Her response when you stop pursuing reveals something far more important than whether she'll chase you back. It reveals where you actually stood with her from the beginning. So let me show you what's really happening when you're stuck in this one-sided pursuit dynamic, and why most men completely misread the situation they're in. Here's what's actually happening when you're stuck in one-sided pursuit. You've been doing all the work, texting first, planning dates, trying to keep her interested, while she gives you just enough attention to keep you hooked. You're analyzing every text for hidden meaning. You're wondering if her short replies mean she's busy or if she's losing interest. You're stuck in this exhausting loop of pursuit and uncertainty, and it's driving you crazy. The psychology behind this is simple but brutal. When you chase someone who's inconsistent with their interest, your brain enters what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. She gives you just enough positive signals to keep you hopeful, but not enough to feel secure. This creates an obsessive pattern where you're constantly seeking that next hit of validation. And the worst part, the more you chase during this cycle, the less attractive you become, because you're demonstrating that your attention is freely available, regardless of how she treats you. Now here's where most men make their critical mistake. They think if I just stop chasing, she'll realize what she's losing and come after me. They believe stopping is a strategy to flip the script, but that's the faulty belief that keeps you trapped. Because stopping isn't a strategy, it's supposed to be a boundary. And the difference between those two mindsets determines everything. And this brings us to the 3 scenarios, and why the third one is the most dangerous. Here's what you need to know about the 3 scenarios. Scenario 1. She was testing you to see if you'd stick around through uncertainty. When you stop chasing in this scenario, it triggers a specific psychological response. She starts wondering if she pushed too far. Scenario 2. She genuinely lost interest. And when you stop pursuing, what she feels isn't longing, it's relief. And scenario 3. This is the one most men miss. You were never actually on her radar as a romantic option to begin with. You're invisible. Each scenario creates a completely different outcome when you stop chasing, and knowing which one you're in changes everything. By the end of this video, you'll have a decision framework to identify your scenario, understand what's actually happening in her mind, and know exactly what to do next. Let's start with scenario 1, the one most men hope they're in. Scenario 1. She was testing you. This happens when a woman has anxious attachment patterns or she's been hurt before, and she's checking to see if you're actually going to stick around when things aren't easy. The key sign: this is a test. Her behavior is inconsistent but not completely cold. She pulls back, but she doesn't disappear. She responds, but slowly. She creates distance, but she's watching to see what you do with that distance. Here's what's happening psychologically. She's managing her own fear of rejection by creating small tests to see if you'll chase when she pulls away. In her mind, if you chase, it proves you care. If you don't, it confirms her fear that you were never that interested. It's not logical, but it's very real for someone operating from anxious attachment. Now, when you stop chasing someone who is testing you, here's what shifts in her mind. She goes from, "Let me see if he'll chase," to, "Wait, did I push too far?" The dynamic flips because suddenly you're not playing the role she expected. You're not begging for her attention. You're not over-explaining. You're not panicking. And that creates a moment of uncertainty for her. Maybe I misread this. Maybe he's not as invested as I thought. Or maybe he's more confident than I realized. This is where a lot of men think they've won. But here's the critical part. If she was testing you and you stop pursuing, she might reach back out. But that doesn't mean the problem is solved. It means she's checking to see if you'll take her back immediately, or if you've actually set a boundary. If you jump right back into pursuing mode the second she reaches out, you fail the test. If you maintain your boundary and show that you're not going to tolerate being jerked around, that's when real respect starts to build. The timeline for this scenario: if she was testing you, you'll usually see some kind of response within 3 to 7 days. It might be a casual text. It might be her watching your social media. It might be her asking a mutual friend about you. The key is that there's some signal she's noticing your absence. But here's what you need to understand. This only works if you genuinely stop chasing because you respect yourself, not because you're trying to manipulate her into chasing you. Here's how to identify this scenario. Look at the pattern before you stopped. Was she inconsistent but still engaged? Did she create tests or drama that seemed designed to get a reaction? Was there a push-pull dynamic? If yes, you might be in scenario 1. But here's what separates scenario 1 from scenario 2, and this is critical. Scenario 2. She genuinely lost interest. This is different from testing because it's not about push-pull dynamics or checking your commitment. This is about attraction fading, usually because something in the dynamic killed it. Maybe you were too available. Maybe there was no challenge. Maybe she met someone else. Or maybe the connection just wasn't strong enough to sustain her interest. The key difference: her behavior isn't inconsistent. It's declining. Each interaction gets shorter. Each text takes longer. She's not creating drama to get a reaction. She's slowly exiting. Here's the psychology. When attraction fades, her brain has already categorized you differently. You've shifted from potential partner to guy who likes me more than I like him. And once that shift happens, your pursuit doesn't create desire. It creates guilt or annoyance. She might still respond because she doesn't want to be cruel, but she's not engaged. She's managing your expectations down gradually. Now, when you stop chasing someone who's genuinely lost interest, here's what happens in her mind. Relief. Not longing. Not regret. Not, "I wonder what he's up to." She feels relief that the pressure is off. She doesn't have to manage your feelings anymore. She doesn't have to feel guilty about not reciprocating. Your absence creates breathing room, not scarcity. This is the harsh truth most men don't want to hear. If she lost interest, your absence won't make her miss you. It'll make her feel free. And here's what makes this scenario so hard to accept. You might have had great conversations early on. There might have been chemistry at some point. But attraction isn't static. It rises and falls based on the dynamic between two people. Once it falls below a certain threshold, no amount of absence or presence brings it back. The foundation eroded, and stopping pursuit doesn't rebuild it. The rationalization process is instant. I made the right decision. We weren't compatible. He was a nice guy. But it wouldn't have worked anyway. Her mind is designed to confirm her decision, not question it. And the longer you were chasing while she was pulling away, the more convinced she becomes that you weren't the right match. Here's how to identify this scenario. Before you stopped, was every interaction an uphill battle? Were you the only one trying to keep things alive? Did she stop asking questions about you? Did she stop initiating anything at all? These aren't tests. These are signs of disengagement. The critical mistake men make here is confusing this scenario with scenario 1. They think she's testing when she's actually done. They wait for her to chase when she's already moved on. And that's where the most time gets wasted. And this is where men make the biggest mistake, confusing scenario 2 with scenario 3. Scenario 3. You were never on her radar. This is the hardest one to accept, because it's not even about rejection in the traditional sense. She didn't lose interest because there was no interest to lose. You weren't being tested because you weren't being considered. In her mind, you exist in a completely different category: friend, acquaintance, ego boost, emotional support, but never romantic option. And the brutal part? You might have been pouring energy into pursuing someone who literally doesn't see you the way you see them. Here's the psychology. When someone isn't on your romantic radar, their romantic gestures don't register as romantic. They register as friendship or neediness or misplaced attention. It's not that she's ignoring your interest, it's that her brain is filtering it through a non-romantic lens. You might think you're being clear about your intentions, but if she's categorized you as not a potential partner, your pursuit feels awkward or uncomfortable, not flattering. Now, when you stop chasing someone who never saw you romantically, here's what happens. Nothing. There's no psychological shift because there was no romantic dynamic to shift. She doesn't notice your absence in a meaningful way because she wasn't tracking your presence romantically to begin with. If she notices at all, it's because she lost a source of attention or emotional support, not because she lost a romantic interest. This is scenario 3's defining characteristic. Your absence is invisible. You've learned about testing and lost interest, but scenario 3 changes everything because it's the most common one men misidentify. They interpret friendliness as flirtation. They interpret politeness as interest. They interpret responsiveness as reciprocation, and they end up investing months or even years into pursuing someone who was never available to them in the way they hoped. Here's how to identify this scenario. Look at the history. Did she ever initiate romantic conversation or physical escalation? Did she ever treat you differently than she treats other male friends? Did she ever prioritize time with you over other options? If the answer is no across the board, you were never on her radar. And here's the empowering reframe. This scenario reveals the fastest path forward because it eliminates false hope immediately. You're not waiting to see if she'll come around. You're not analyzing mixed signals. You're not wasting time hoping she'll wake up and see your value. She's shown you where you stand. And that clarity, as harsh as it is actually the most respectful thing she could give you. Because now you can redirect your energy towards someone who actually sees you. The biggest mistake men make across all 3 scenarios is not identifying which one they're in early enough. They assume it's scenario 1 when they're actually in 2 or 3, and that assumption costs them time, energy, and self-respect. Now here's what you need to do with this information. The decision framework. Here's how to map your situation to the right scenario. Start by looking at the pattern before you stop chasing. If her behavior was inconsistent, pulling away but still engaging, creating drama but still responsive, you're likely in scenario 1. If her behavior was steadily declining, each interaction shorter, less engaged, more distant, you're in scenario 2. If there was never romantic reciprocation, no initiation from her side, no romantic escalation, treated you like everyone else, you're in scenario 3. Next, the timeline test. If you're in scenario 1, you'll see signals within 3 to 7 days. She'll reach out, check your social media, ask about you through friends. If you're in scenario 2 or 3, silence. Complete silence. And that silence is your answer. Don't make the mistake of thinking she's just giving me space after 2 weeks of nothing. Space looks like reduced contact. Disinterest looks like no contact. Now, here's the decision matrix. If scenario 1, you can choose to re-engage, but only if you maintain boundaries. If she reaches out, don't jump back into pursuit mode. Match her energy. Show that you're willing to connect, but not willing to chase. This tests whether she's capable of meeting you halfway, or if she'll just pull back again the moment you show interest. If scenario 2, walk away. I know that's harsh, but hear me. If someone lost interest and you stopping didn't create any curiosity or reconsideration, they're not going to suddenly develop it. You're holding out hope for a shift that already had its chance to happen and didn't. Walking away isn't giving up. It's respecting the reality of the situation and redirecting your energy towards someone who actually wants you there. If scenario 3, this one requires the hardest shift, you need to reframe how you see her completely. She's not a romantic prospect. She never was. And the faster you accept that, the faster you can pursue someone who actually sees you. Don't wait for her to realize anything. She's not going to wake up one day and suddenly see you differently after months or years of seeing you one way. The self-respect baseline. Regardless of which scenario you're in, there are certain behaviors that indicate it's time to walk away permanently. If she's inconsistent even after you've set boundaries, if she only reaches out when she needs something, if she keeps you as a backup option while pursuing others, if she disrespects your time repeatedly, these aren't tests. These are red flags. And your self-respect should always be the deciding factor, not your hope that she'll change. Here's the prevention strategy for future situations. Identify scenarios earlier. The moment you notice you're doing all the pursuing, you're always texting first, always planning, always initiating, stop and assess. Don't wait months to see if things will balance out. They won't. The pattern you see in the first few weeks is the pattern that will continue or intensify. Trust early data. And here's the reframe that changes everything. Her response when you stop chasing doesn't determine your worth. It determines compatibility. If she doesn't miss you, it doesn't mean you're not valuable. It means she wasn't the right person to see that value. The right person won't need you to chase. They'll meet you in the middle. But here's what no one talks about. And it's the most important part. Some men stop chasing for the wrong reasons. And if you've stayed with me this long, I know you're ready for this uncomfortable truth. A lot of men who stop pursuing aren't actually stopping. They're strategizing. They're not setting a boundary. They're setting a trap. They're using silence as a manipulation tactic to make her chase them. And there's a massive difference between authentic boundaries and covert manipulation. Here's why that matters. If you stop pursuing because you genuinely respect yourself and won't accept one-sided dynamics, that's real. But if you stop because you think it's a tactic to trigger her interest, because you believe absence makes the heart grow fonder, you're still chasing. You're just using silence instead of text. You haven't let go. You've changed strategies. The men who actually stop chasing aren't waiting for a response. They're not checking if she's watching their social media. They're not secretly hoping she'll notice. They've moved on mentally and emotionally because they decided their energy is worth more than a one-sided dynamic. And ironically, that authentic detachment is what actually makes you attractive. Again, not the silence as a strategy, but the genuine not caring about the outcome with her specifically. Here's the question. Are you really okay with her not responding? Or are you secretly hoping your absence will trigger something? Because if it's the latter, you're not respecting yourself, you're still seeking her validation. Just quietly. Boundaries are about what you will and won't accept. Manipulation is about what you're trying to make her do. And here's the truth. The right woman won't require these games. She won't need you to disappear for her to see your value. If someone needs you to stop chasing for them to appreciate you, they don't appreciate you. They appreciate your attention. When you genuinely stop as a boundary, not a strategy, you're filtering for someone who actually wants to be there. That shift changes everything. So here's what I want to know. Which scenario do you think you're in right now? Are you dealing with someone who was testing you, someone who lost interest, or someone who never saw you the way you saw them? Drop a comment and let me know what you're experiencing. I read every single comment and I genuinely want to hear your story because your situation helps other men who are going through the same thing. And here's the bigger picture beyond just this one situation. This isn't just about one woman or one dynamic. This is about building a mindset where you make decisions from self-respect instead of desperation. Where you can walk away from situations that don't serve you without second-guessing yourself. Where you understand that your value doesn't depend on someone else recognizing it. That's what this community is about. Men who refuse to chase validation and instead build lives worth being chosen. Remember this. When you stop chasing, you're not giving up. You're filtering. You're eliminating people who don't see your worth so you can find someone who does. Your attention, your time, your energy, they're not free. They're valuable. And the moment you start treating them that way, everything changes. Stop chasing. Start choosing.